Okay, so now is the time to create our recycler view and view holders. So we will start with creating layout for our picture item. Okay, we will use linear layout as a root layout. We will set width to be 150. We can make this be wrap content, and gravity is actually, we want to specify gravity of the children in here, like so. We want to specify corner radius. Let's make it 100 so that we are sure that will be a circle. Now image view will be match parent so that we achieve the rounded image. Like this, and we will need text view for the title. And orientation will be vertical, okay. Text size will be 20 sp. Text color black. Now we'll create recycler view adapter. So it needs to extend the recycler view dot adapter, and view holder will be now static class, which extends recycler view dot view holder. We will generate constructor. Now we need to put in here our newly created view holder, and we can implement methods. Let's add data in here. It will be a list of picture items. So it is our model item. It will be initially empty array list. So item count will be data size. Here we want to declare title text view and image. They will be initialized once view holder gets created. Okay, now in onBind view holder we will say holder txt title set text, and we say data dot get position, get author, because it will be author name for the title of the image. And now to inflate image we will need to use glide library, so we will open Gradle to add dependency on that. So I will now paste dependencies for glide so that you can copy it out. You can find it on Google anyway. So we go back to the adapter where we now say glide.width. We need to specify context. We'll pull context from item view itself, and then load data get position, and we get image URL. Now to create a view holder, we will say view is equal to layout inflator from context, which will be taken from parent, and we inflate picture layout. We specify parent for the container, and we say false because you don't want to attach this to root, otherwise app would have crashed. And we want to return our view holder with this inflated view passed in a constructor. So we are missing new in here. Okay, so let's go to activity main XML, we want to add our recycler view. So we will add button, which will say load pictures. ID will be btn load. We can make this be linear layout actually. Like this, with vertical orientation. So now instead of height being match parent, I will say 0 dp, but weight will be 1. And it will mean that recycler view will take all the space that is left when button draws itself. And we will center this button. Let's set ID for this recycle. Images. And now in main activity, let's declare it. We will initialize it in here. We will create adapter firstly. But we will need to make it global so that we can set the data later when the data gets in here, right? We will set adapter to be this one. We will set layout manager to be linear layout manager. Context will be this. Orientation will be vertical, and we don't want items to be put in a reverse order. So now what we are missing is to how to set actually the data. So we'll add set data in here, which will, after setting the data, say notify data set changed, so that we can get our items drawn. And once we get the data, we will say adapter dot set data picture items. Okay, so now we need to add button as well. Button ID was btn load. We will set on click listener. And once user clicks, we will call request picture items. So now let's run the app and observe the result. If we click on load, so we got our items, but there are no images because we forgot here to say into holder.image picture. So we will rerun it once again. Okay, we got our images now. We can also check whether if it works with internet connection turned off. So we will now close the app and open it once again. If we load pictures, we are getting ones from the local database. Okay, so we will turn it on again. So now we have one more thing to implement, which is shimmering effect of loading those items. So how do we achieve this? So for this we need library, which comes from the Facebook. It is this one. So it's quite easy to use. So now how Shimmer works is actually, it's some kind of frame layout. So let's make it like this in here. And now basically whatever we put in here, it will mimic loading of those shapes. So we need shapes like in here so that it can create overlays that are basically like loadings. So now we can't just reuse this one because Shimmer can't work if background is white. It basically combines actual colors of our views to make that loading effect. So we'll create new layout. We'll say, okay, we'll actually say fake picture item layout. In here we will paste exactly the same, but we will add app card background color. Notice this. So it's not just a regular color. You can make it black. You can make whichever gradient you want. And for the text view, we will need background to be black. But since there is no content, we can delete firstly IDs. I will need to specify width to have some fixed values like so. And now we will go back to our activity main. We will use constraint layout instead of linear to make things easier. We will constraint button to bottom of parent, left to left of parent, and the right to right of parent to make it centered like this. Okay, so let's make recycler view be constrained to the button and to the parent like this. Oh, now what about Shimmer? Shimmer will take exact same constraint as a recycler view because we want it to be placed in place of recycler view anyway. We can now remove weight. We will use width to be 0 as well, but constraint need to be right to right of parent. Now for the Shimmer it will be the same. So note that match parent doesn't exist in constraint layout. So that's why I'm setting those to 0. So we need to say okay, like this. And in here we will include our fake picture item layout several times. So we're probably gonna need here linear layout so that we can arrange them one on top of the other like this. So let's add one more, why not? And initially we want visibility to be gone of this shimmer, and we want ID of this shimmer to be shimmer. Now when we go in main activity, we will declare it shimmer frame layout. Okay, so it just got recognized. Shimmer. So once we click, we want shimmer visibility to be visible, and when the data gets received, we want its visibility to go back to gone. So let's start the app and hope for the best. So okay, so let's click on load pictures. We saw items for a moment, but the issue here is that we need to edit this constraint for the recycler view, because you see that it got invisible in that occasion. So we will try this again. Okay, see, so you saw we got the items, but since it's quite fast, we couldn't see Shimmer working a bit more. So that's why we will here add post delay, just so that you can see how it works. So quick note, never use post delayed in production. It's bad practice to make our user wait for something if there is no need for waiting. Use it only when you want to delay some operation, such as animating stuff and similar. So now if we click on load, you can see this effect. So since we can see that this screen can only contain 3 items at one time, we can remove this one because this one is extra. So if you wonder how we got 4 here working perfectly and here we can see only 3, well, it's probably because here we are using wrong device as a preview. So if you say that it is pixel 2, it would be the same as on our actual emulator. So let's rerun once again. And here it is. So you can play around, modify things however you want. So now to quickly recap, what have we done in this project? So we have main activity. Let's delete this handler now so we don't forget it. So we have our ViewModel. So this is basically our hierarchy. We have activity, then we have ViewModel. So ViewModel is something that contains business logic. It requests the data, it processes the data in a small fashion. So now in here we have repository, which is this part. When user requests the data, we tell the repository that user wants the data. So ViewModel doesn't need to know anything about how the data will be actually fetched or where will data be actually fetched from. So it is up to repository to know that thing. When you're building applications, the less things a single class knows, it is the better. So it's the best when a single object doesn't know more than it actually needs. So in that way, we are keeping our application and the architecture clean for new features. When the bug arises, we can immediately know where that bug might come from, and it is easier to resolve it. So let's get back on track. So we have live data here. Now repository, when we request the data, it will decide whether to fetch the data from local storage or from the server. In our case, we are using both because we want immediately to display something to the user, and then when the new fresh feed comes, we want to update UI. You can here modify this, for example, to check if we have internet connection or not. So if not, then display offline data. If we have, you don't need to even display maybe offline data. So a quick hint, if you would like to check that, so you could pass here network manager as well. So something like that. And then you would make checking here. So next thing is that when our data actually comes, we are passing it through callback, which is sent from ViewModel. So that's the way we handle asynchronous tasks. So when we are waiting for some kind of result, we are basically sending some kind of callback. And when the data arrives, we are sending that data back through that callback to a calling method. So now if you wonder why did we use so many different objects like data transfer object, entity object, and our model object. So that's because what can also happen is that sometimes we need to combine multiple transfer objects to form a single object that UI will be using. So for example, what if we here needed to fire 2 or 3 more API calls to fulfill one object that will then be sent on the UI? So for example, if we are having object about some movies, about the movie, so one API call could retrieve image and details, but we might need to use second different API call that would retrieve number of users or maybe number of likes. So in that case, we would have 2 different data transfer objects. We would have one object for movie image and let's say title, description, but we would have second transfer object that would contain number of users, likes, and some similar stuff. So then in repository we would have map those 2 into a single model object that would be then sent through the callback back to ViewModel. So that's just one example. There are probably many. If you have any questions, you can post them in the comment section, so I will be happy to answer. So that's all for this lecture, and I'm seeing you in the next one.